Well, hello everyone. Thank you very much for showing up to the Open-E webinar. I just want to let you all know that today is June the 14th, and this was a webinar that many of you have asked that I've seen on some of the support tickets, and we thought it would be valuable to present this information. So the topic is how to import your Windows data from the Open-E DSS V6. And some of the topics that we're going to go over with is the basic stuff, and then we'll go into actually presenting them with me. By the way, my name is Todd Max with Open-E Technical Sales. I have along with me Chris Wilson and special guest Michael McGuire, who's from the European Support Division, who's our manager over there on that side of the world. So Michael's going to be helping us with assisting me on moving the data from the Windows server to the DSS V6. One of the subjects that we need to start off with is how to set up the NAS Logical Volume to store the Microsoft data. And then after that, what we're going to do is create a NAS Share from the NAS Logical Volume, and then of course access the console's tools from the console screen. And then once we get that done, what we'll do is we'll roll into performing the data migration by using the add-on tools from the console screen. And of course, we're going to show you some of the things that you might run into with setting the access rights for the users. And we're going to start with showing the DSS V6. So what we're going to do is start in the beginning. By the way, I want to let everybody know that I'm using the latest version, just in case many of you do need to know that the last build is 5377 that was released, and just in case you need to be updated. One of the first things we're going to need to do on the DSS is we've got to create a NAS Logical Volume. So let's go to Configuration, and we'll go to Volume Manager and Volume Groups. Now, as you see here, I already have several volume groups that are available, and one that we're using is VG00 that I have here. So you will use Unit S01, which is our Volume Group 00. If you notice on the left here, we have the VG00 available. And I'm going to be creating a NAS Logical Volume right now. So for this case, what we're going to do is you can create as any large size as you want. You can expand an existing NAS Logical Volume. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and create a 100 gig NAS Logical Volume. But if you had a terabyte of Microsoft data on an NTFS partition or drive or even a RAID controller, and you want to bring that data in, you can create as large as you want. Especially with DSS V6 in 64-bit mode, your NAS Logical Volumes can be as large as you want. They can be up to 50 terabytes. Okay, now we've created our NAS Logical Volume. Let's make sure that some of our settings in the NAS settings for resources and also settings are ready. Typically, if you were trying to access the data, we default to the Windows workgroup internal LDAP. But if you were to use a Windows system, you can connect to the users and groups with PDC and ADS capabilities. For this purposes, we're just going to set the defaults to workgroup internal LDAP. And of course, if you had users that were using NFS and they need to access the data or FTP, you can select these as well for your file protocol communications. Once that's done, let's go ahead and verify on our NAS resources and our shares, and let's create a share. Now, the reason why we're doing this is that when we demonstrate to import the data from the Windows files and from the Windows servers or Windows PCs, we've got to be able to restore or export the data from the USB drive or from a Windows drive itself to restore it to a share. So let's create a share called we can call one called backup, and we'll go ahead and apply that. It could be any name, it could be data, it could be a date that you have, and let's click on the share. And for this purpose, what we're going to do is just make it with guest anyone without password. And you can do with passwords and assign it and create your users. But for simplicity reasons, for this webinar, we're just going to go ahead and select use the SMB for summas and SIFs, and then we're going to be making it visible, which is what we have here at the default, and guest anyone without password. So let's go ahead and hit apply on that. Now we're almost pretty much done at this point. Currently right now there is nothing stored on. If you look here, I clicked on the arrow for the path, And here you can see there is nothing available in this share. Okay, now let's go to the Windows system. So I've got a remote desktop on the system. Let's pull this up right now. And here I wanted to show you that what we've done, let's go to my computer, is we have a USB drive, about 500 gig after formatted. It comes out to 465 gig. And what we're using is a SATA drive that's connected to a USB interface. You could actually have a physical drive on here and connect it to a DSS server, either the SATA or if you had a USB flash stick. If you had, let's say, a larger amount of data, it could be terabytes of data that you can import. So what we have here is on this drive G is we have some files and folders and information here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to have Michael go back to the server once I show you that there's files here, and he's going to pull out the system, the USB drive that's connected to the system, and he's going to plug that USB cable from the Windows 2003 server to the DSS V6. So Michael's walking back there right now, and he's going to go ahead and perform that. And to verify, what we would like to do is everything live is to pretty much show that currently looks like he removed it, so it's no longer available. And there you can see it's updated. Michael's already pulled out the USB drive that has the SATA drive on there, and he's plugged it into the DSS V6. Alright, now it usually takes about a few seconds, so at this point we're pretty much done with the Windows system. And let's go ahead and now we use the console tools. Now before we use the consoles, just in case anyone's not familiar how to access the console screen from the DSS, what this does, it saves you a lot of time walking up to the server itself. So you don't have to walk up to the DSS. You can use PuTTY, which is a SSH protocol that we're using to connect to the DSS from the console screen. So what you want to do is you want to go to Setup, Administrator, and then once you're an administrator, scroll all the way down to the bottom where you see Remote Console Access. Here, for this purpose, I'm not putting any allow IP addresses, though if you have certain restrictions and security policies, then you probably want to go ahead and put some IP addresses in there. The default port is 22,222, and you need a password of a minimum of 5 characters. So here I've already have it set up. There's no reason for me to re-enter it. And once you do that, then you get the select the remote access button and hit apply. For those who need more information about the remote console access information, if you click on the question mark on the right, you'll see here there's a lot of information. First, I want to let everybody know that the default user is CLI, standing for Command Line Interface. And here are some parameters. You can't use special characters, so please be aware when you enter that. I had several questions in the past couple of weeks. People were trying to figure out why can't we use special characters until I pointed out to this that we have them listed here and they're not recommended to use. And we also have some information if you're using Linux or a Mac OS. You can download PuTTY. If you have connection to a gateway and DNS is set on to the DSS V6, or you can go on and Google it. You can download, click here on where it states PuTTY, and then here you have a download capability here to download the PuTTY.exe file. So going back, I do want to point out one notation here is if you scroll down, this is one of the things that you want to make sure, and I'll point this out before we log on, is that you want to set for the keyboard functions to VT100+. A lot of times I have people that ask me, well, I can't do the Control-Alt-K function or the Control-Alt-X function. Well, you need the VT100+ to be able to use those function keys. Okay, so now that we have a remote console access set up, now we can get into the remote console access. I have PuTTY shown right up here. Let's verify that it's on there. And here I have a preset for DSS1. And remember, we got to keep that at the default port, or if you change the port, make sure that you reflect those changes. So if you have many systems and if you're doing something from the WAN, wide area network, make sure that you're port forwarding to the proper ports through your firewall. So let's say I had several DSS. So if you look here, DSS2 or DSS3, you may want to put 22,224 and so forth and so forth, and then make your port forwarding changes there to reflect on your firewall. And of course, I have the proper DSS IP address of the last octet. As you know, we saw we're working with 220. Then in the terminal keyboard, we want to make sure that we select VT100 plus right here. All right. So now we're ready to go ahead and open up, and here we are. And if you remember, the login is user is CLI. Of course, I have my preset password. And let's go ahead and let's make the screen a little bit larger so everybody can see it. There we go. Let's bring that up. I think there you go. Okay. Now we've moved just going back to a few steps here, we've created the NAS Logical Volume. We've set it up for SOMAs and SIFs, and also to allow everybody access to it, so there's no password, so it's guessed. And now we're ready to use the console screen to be able to access the function called Add-ons. So what you want to do at this point in time is, if you ever get lost, by the way, is if you're looking to navigate towards the console tools, you can hit the F1 key and you see a whole list here. So it's very helpful. So what we're going to use is Control-Alt-T for console tools. You can see right here the console tools menu. And again, if you get lost or if you're ever trying to navigate, use the F1 key and that'll bring you to the whole listings of the console screen functions. So there's a lot you can do here. What we're looking for is option number 6, called Add-ons. Now here we have a selection that's called Data Import. So you want to look for that one and select Data Import. And here you'll see that it says, please insert disk into system. Do not remove the disk until the copy process has finished. This should be obvious for all of you. We do give you a warning that it's working. We show you the progress that it's copying. You'll see that. And you just really don't want to be able to remove a USB disk or a drive that has the NTFS files on it. And it's just better that way, and make sure you don't lose it. So now you see that it has picked up the 500 gig SATA drive. Now, there is the share. Of course, you can have any share. You can select them. Here I'm going to select the backup share that we've created. And this will tell you that it's going to import into the subfolder. And it specifies it by the date and time. And of course, we're going to continue. Now, obviously, if you had a terabyte or even larger amounts of data, it would take longer. And you want to just really kind of be aware of that. Although this has about, I believe, about a gig of data, so you're importing a lot of information into the USB functionality on the port. So it's relatively not bad. If I had a directly connect the SATA drive to the motherboard, I would also be able to perform this operation as well. So as this process is importing the data, what we're going to go through is that we'll see how we're going to be able to access the data and show you that what happens is if you don't create a user, especially with the access control list, you will not be able to access the data. So it's something that we're kind of going to set up live for you, so that way you experience the same things that somebody else would if you're not informed. All right, here we are. So now you can see we're ready to remove the disk from the system. Michael, could you help me out and grab that? Thanks a lot. So Michael's going to go back there and remove it, and let's go ahead and continue and specify OK. And we're done here. And now let's bring up the DSS V6. Okay. So let's scroll back up and go to Configuration, NAS Resources and Shares. And here we see backup. And if we, what we want to do is to verify that the data has been imported, we want to look where the state's path and then click on the down arrow button. Now there is the directory that it created, If you remember from the console screen, it specified the date, the day, which is abbreviated by Tuesday, and of course the month and the day, and of course we added the time on there, and it provides you Eastern Daylight Time in the year. Now let's click on that. Now we see all the files that are now residing into the share called backup. So now how do we access the data? Well, let's take a look. If we go to the original system of the Windows 2003 server where we originally were at when we copied the data, you would think that you would be able to access the data immediately. Well, let's verify it. So here is the IP address of the share backup, and here we see the share backup from the DSS V6 system. And here we see the directory that it's created. Now notice what happens immediately. So it'll state that it is not accessible. You might not have permissions to use this network resources, contact the administrator, and so on. Well, is that something that really is true? Yes, but it's not on the Windows side. So let's just verify that it's just not a Windows 2003 server issue. Maybe it just could be that anybody can access it. So we're on my Windows system, which is a Vista system. I'm not logged into any domain. So let's see if we connect through the IP on this. Let's pull this up and see if we're able to see that screen. We are. Let's bring this up. So here again, you see the backup function, share that we've created, and of course the subdirectory. Same error message. Windows cannot access, and check the spelling name, otherwise the problem might be within your network. To identify or resolve and so forth, contact your administrator. Well, we all know that that's not the case, and I don't have time to contact the administrator, but here is the trick. What you want to do at this point is you want to be able to create a user. Any user will do. Let's create a person called Sam. We'll give Sam just a general password and name. And once we create Sam, we'll wait for a second to populate. We see Sam. We provide the backup share access for Sam. We hit apply. Does this mean that you'll still have access to the share? No. Let's take a look as to why. If we go back and we see the share, we've added Sam to it, it still doesn't matter. Even if I were to add my name, let's add a new user, Todd. And my system PC name is Todd. I should be able to access it. And let's verify. So let's start back, close this out. Go to 220, which is the last octet of the DSS V6. There we see backup. Again, no. So what do you have to do? This is where you have to set the access control list. What you want to do is you want to click on the shares, scroll down to the access control list functionality, double click on the logical volume where the share resides, double click on the share, and click once on the directory that it was created for the import that we provided that was done through the add-on tools. And here let's select Todd, and we'll hit apply. We'll go back to the share and to the directory. Oops, let's go back up to just click once on the directory. Now we go to access permission. Here we see Todd. We will select read, write, execute, and apply to all subdirectories. Now, let's go ahead and go back to the directory. Let's close this out and start all over. So what we'll do is we'll go back into the shares, click once. We'll take users, make sure that we have the read, write, execute. Okay, and we'll go back and verify and add Ted and Tom and verify our access permissions. And one good side note to always remember is to make sure that the users without passwords and number. Remember we say that in the beginning. Okay, so let's take our directory. We've got that applied. Put read, write, execute, and hit apply. Now, let's go to our share. Guess anyone without password. And let's verify. And we know that we got Todd has access to that share. Also Sam. Okay. And there you are. Now you're able to access all the directories and files that you have imported. So please be aware of when you create the user in DSS, not only do you create the user and assign them to that share that he has access to, make sure that you have in the shares in the access control list that those users under backup, under that directory, make sure you've assigned those users over. Just one will do. Make sure that Todd or that user or others has the read, write, and permissions and execute. Well, everybody, I hope that helps you on how to import your data, especially when you want to migrate your data over to a DSS NAS share. That way others can connect to the data and be able to use it for backup functionalities, because now we can use our internal backup feature to back up all the data within that share. Well, everybody, have a great day, and thank you for joining me at this webinar. And take care, and hope to see you for the next one. Bye-bye.